It is a pleasure to be in Muzaffarpur again. As Dr. Angila Sinha Madam said, this is my third visit here. And I think there will be many more visits. I will shortly explain why. It is always, of course, a pleasure to meet Dr. Angila Sinha Madam. As she just told you, I know her since I was a child. And I think the first time I came, I had come for the state conference, which was held over here. And Madam had given me her book. And she had told me that I should read the book. So I not only did I read the book, but my wife, my children, my brother, my whole family has read the book, and it's a very inspiring book. And thank you very much for writing it so that future generations can benefit from your experience. I am very happy and very grateful to Dr. Neelam Sinha Madam and Dr. Sadhna Sinha Madam for making sure that I am here very comfortably. Thank you very much, Madam. Madam has been following my journey with the car and the driver. And I must thank Dr. Pallavi Roy, Dr. Vibha Verma, and Dr. Prachi Singh, who have organized this very important ICO GCME. Let me also thank the chairpersons, Dr. Angila Sinha Madam, Dr. Anjana Mishra, and Dr. Manju Jaiswal, and of course, the Secretary General of FOXI, Dr. Madhuri Patel. So I'm going to speak on MTP Act amendments and update. But before I do that, I just want to give you a sense of what is happening in FOXI in this year. And I understand that there is a public forum after this. What time is it so that I can... After this. Yeah. Sorry? No, what time is the forum? 4 o'clock, okay. All right, okay. So I'll make sure I finish in time. Right, so as I said, I thought I will give you a sense of what is happening in FOXI in this year. And of course, you know that every year FOXI has an annual theme. And actually, themes in FOXI began in 1997. The first ever theme in FOXI was on breastfeeding, and the first president who started this trend of having annual themes was in fact my father, Dr. D.K. Tank. And every year since then, there have been themes. So there have been approximately around 27 themes so far. When I started thinking about what the theme should be for this year, I first made an analysis of all the past 27 themes. And I found that 17 of these 26 or 27 themes were actually quite broad in nature. There were around 9 themes which were topic specific, like adolescence, family planning, abortion. But even in those years, the president and FOXI obviously did not restrict themselves to that topic. FOXI continued working on everything. So I thought, since the zeitgeist of FOXI seems to be a general theme, I should also try to have a general theme of FOXI. And that is why we came up with this theme. I'm very happy to say that the entire concept, the artwork, the design, the thoughts, everything about this theme has come from me. I did not hire an artist or I didn't hire an agency to do it. This is all work which has been done by me. And every logo, because at the end the theme is reflected in the logo, should tell a story or should convey what the year would be looking like. And that's why I will try and explain the thoughts behind this logo and theme to you, which occurred to me while I was designing it. So FOXI, as you can see, is at the center, and FOXI is at the center of everything that we do as obstetricians and gynecologists and FOXI members. And then you'll see that the FOXI logo is surrounded by diverse colors. So these diverse colors coming together in a circle create harmony and balance. But there are many colors in it because the colors are supposed to represent the diversity, that we have in our country. It represents the diversity in the people we serve. It represents the diversity that we as members of Foxy have, and it represents the diversity in the services that we provide. But despite having so much diversity, it still comes together in a harmonious whole like this circle does. The circle has been deliberately left incomplete over there, and that gap in the circle represents the distance that we have to travel to make sure that every woman gets the health care that she deserves. So in fact, not only this year, but in the years to come, our aspiration should be to complete that circle, and that's why that gap has been left in the circle. I selected the theme Foxy 360 because it indicates a 360-degree approach to women's health, and of course internally to the institution of Foxy. The tagline is coordinate, communicate, community, because we want to coordinate by communication, develop a sense of community to present our point of view, and set narratives from our perspective. I selected the color orange for that line because orange combines the energy of red and the happiness of yellow. It represents fire and purity. And as the Russian artist Kandinsky said, orange is red brought nearer to humanity by yellow. And finally, I decided to use Sanskrit for the final line because in India, language is a very emotive issue. It's an emotive issue to the extent that when India gained independence, our states were actually formed on the basis of language. They were not formed on the basis of ethnicity, or they were not formed on the basis of economics. They were formed on the basis of language. So Gujaratis got Gujarat, the Tamilians got Tamil Nadu, and so on and so forth. And because language seems to be such an important issue, I decided to use Sanskrit because Sanskrit is supposed to be the mother language from which most of our Indian languages emanate. And I used the words Jivanasya Ruttam, which means circle of life in Sanskrit. And it also talks about the circle that we have earlier talked about, where we have the diversity of services. So this is the logo and the theme of this year, and these are the thoughts that went into making the logo and theme. And to action what thoughts are there in this logo and theme, we have been very fortunate because this year we have received quite a large grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. As you know, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is the largest private charitable foundation in the world. And this year, Foxy has been fortunate to receive a grant of $2.7 million from them, which is around 23.5 crores. This is by far the largest grant which has been given to Foxy by any organization. Just for context, the previous largest grant which had come to Foxy was somewhere around 4 crores. And this one is around 23.5 crores. And it has been very interesting to write this proposal, work on this proposal, and I must thank the Secretary General Dr. Madhuri Patel for all her help and guidance and advice through the process of the grant. So the grant actually looks at developing a partner ecosystem, and our partners in this is going to be IPAS, GHS and Sattva. In fact, the total project size is close to around 35 crores. Out of which Foxy has received 23.5 and the rest has gone to some of these partners. So what IPAS is doing, and they've already done it in Muzaffarpur actually, has created a landscape of the private sector facilities in the districts that we have selected. And I'll tell you why this landscape is important. Global Health Strategies is a communications expert and advocacy partner, so they're going to talk to us and help us with policy advocacy and communications. And Sattva is one of India's largest healthcare consultancies, and they're going to help with grant management and strategy. So this is the way the grant will flow. We'll have an inception phase which is now complete. We got 6 months for planning. We are now in the PU and MEL hiring phase, which should be complete by the end of next month. We will then create CPD modules, and we have used this different terminology. Instead of saying CME, we are saying CPD, because that's the terminology which is being used in the new NMC guidelines, and that's why we are calling it CPD. And then we will do data analysis. So we've had good progress on onboarding. We have selected districts. The project has been awarded for 29 districts across 4 states. And the states that we selected were Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and Odisha. And as you will see in Bihar, one of the states that has been one of the districts that has been selected is the Muzaffarpur society. So I'm looking forward to all cooperation, help and support from the MOGS. And by the way, when I say MOGS, I remember that I am also from MOGS, because I am from the Mumbai Obstetrics and Gynaecological Society. Absolutely, madam. So what the project is going to essentially look at is work in 3 tranches. There is one component on improving quality of intrapartum care. Now, this is something which I have repeatedly told them, that please don't come in with the assumption that there is a lack of quality. We are not even going to use that as a starting point. If there was a lack of quality in the private sector, patients wouldn't be coming back to the private sector. So don't make that very wrong assumption which sometimes people start with by saying perhaps the private sector doesn't have quality of care. The private sector definitely has quality of care. We are talking about methodologies of putting in systems to perhaps analyze and then look at that quality of care. We are also looking at introducing innovations. One of the innovations we are going to begin with is the increased uptake of the emotive approach for PPH. Again, and this is something I've told them, that it's not that we are not doing the emotive approach, but perhaps we fail to articulate it. I have always believed that in low resource settings particularly, we are already taking the emotive approach where we don't wait for one thing to fail before starting the other thing. If a patient has bleeding, we give massage, we give uterotonics and we start IV fluids all at the same time. But we have failed to articulate it, and that's why now we are being told to follow the emotive approach, which is good for us because we are doing it anyway all the time. The second innovation we are talking about is to increase the uptake of IV FCM in the private sector. That will be followed by a partnership with the pediatricians to improve outcomes in prematurity. And then finally, we hope that by the second quarter of next year, which is a bit of a long timeline, we will introduce the Odon device into the private sector. Foxy is in the process of signing an MOU with an organization called MNHI, which makes the Odon device and markets it. They have failed to get commercial approval for the Odon device, and I'm sure all of you have heard of the Odon device, but I had an opportunity to use it when I had gone to Paris on a dummy and pelvis, and it's remarkable. So Odon device is a new device in lieu of the forceps and the vacuum for instrumental delivery. The beauty of that device is that it doesn't have any solid parts. It's essentially like a shopping bag which encapsulates the fetal head, and it's a strong shopping bag, and it has an air cuff which goes around the fetal jaw. And because there are no solid parts, the chances of injury to the fetus and the perineum are very low. So it's going to be a remarkable device. I think that it will really help in improving the uptake of instrumental deliveries, and that is the next innovation. And Muzaffarpur Society is going to play a lead role in rolling out this project. The Odon device? Yeah, so the Odon device, madam, I have a video, I can show that to you later after I finish the presentation. It's a very simple device, but it's very, very interesting. So having gone through this part, and again with blessings and help and support from the Muzaffarpur Society, remember that this is the biggest project that Foxy has got. And I'm not really looking at this as the end point for Foxy. If this project goes well, we hope that Foxy, when Dr. Patel perhaps is the president, will receive much bigger and much better sort of funding. And I think, the Muzaffarpur Society is going to play a very important role in making sure that this project is successful. I also want to thank Dr. Abharani Sinha, madam.
I accept it, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Dr. Abharani Sinha will be one of the state coordinators, and she will help in rolling out this project across the state. So let me begin the topic proper. To talk about MTP Act and abortions. And I'm sure that this is a story which everyone has at some point of time encountered. Yeah. No problem, Dr. J.B. Sharma. Have a safe flight back. Thank you. Yeah. So this is actually a story of a family. It's not really a story necessarily only about the pregnant girl. Now imagine that there is this village in our country, and there is this family living over there. There's a mother, daughter, and a 12-year-old girl, their daughter. The husband, the wife are both daily wage earners. They have to go out to the fields every day to make a living. And they leave their daughter with someone they think is a trusted relative, the maternal uncle. Unfortunately, this trusted relative turns out to be the worst kind of predator. He turns out to be a pedophile, and he repeatedly rapes this 12-year-old girl until inevitably she gets pregnant. This 12-year-old girl, not having had the benefit of menstrual hygiene education, sex education, doesn't really know what to make of things. She doesn't even understand that her periods have not come since a few months. And it's only after 3 or 4 months that her mother realizes that my 12-year-old daughter has not had periods since a few months. She takes her daughter to the primary health center, and at the primary health center, she is shocked to discover that her daughter is 24 weeks pregnant. Now remember, this was before the amendment. She is told that, sorry, your 12-year-old daughter is 24 weeks pregnant and we can't do anything about it. And then starts the rounds of going to various authorities, lawyers, judges, medical boards. And you can just imagine what is happening to that family. Every time they go to a new forum, they go to a new authority, every time they have to relive the trauma. Finally, with the help of some NGOs, they finally reached the Supreme Court. And I was asked for an opinion by the Supreme Court on this issue, whether she should be allowed an abortion or not. And I said that yes, she should be allowed an abortion, because having an abortion at any time during the pregnancy is safer than going to term and delivering the baby. But the Supreme Court said, sorry, she is now 32 weeks pregnant. That's how much time it took for her to realize that she was pregnant and finally reach the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court declined the abortion, and this 12-year-old girl then had to go to term with the pregnancy and undergo a cesarean section and then give that child up for adoption. Now the reason I'm telling you this story is that sometimes when we talk about abortion being 10% of pregnancies, 12% of pregnancies, 15 million abortions every year, we lose this human context. And sometimes it's important to humanize the problem. And whenever we think, talk, look at the MTP Act, I would request all of you to please keep this 12-year-old girl and her family in mind. This is whom the MTP Act is supposed to serve. This is why, as obstetricians and gynecologists and healthcare providers for women, we have to make sure that abortion is safe. In fact, you know that abortion in India is governed by the MTP Act. I don't know how many of you are fans of Harry Potter, but I really like that book series. And in one of the books, The Deathly Hallows, Scrimgeour asks Hermione, "Are you planning to follow a career in magical law?" And she says, "No, I'm not. I'm actually hoping to do some good in the world." And it's rather unfortunate that because of the way laws are written, laws are implemented, that we have started perceiving all laws and policies as being something which hinders our work rather than facilitates it. It is but important to particularly read the laws which govern us. I'm not asking for a show of hands, but just think to yourself, have you read the MTP Act cover to cover? I would dare say that for most of us, it remains what Mark Twain said of a classic, something that everybody wants to have read and no one wants to read. But if you haven't read the MTP Act, I would strongly urge you to read it. For me, it's one of the most elegant pieces of legislature to have ever come out of the Indian Parliament. And it's not only elegant, sorry, I think there's somebody's phone over here. It's not only elegant, it is also one of the few acts which is genuinely empowering for women because it allows them to undergo an abortion. It is protective for us because it protects us from the sections of the Indian Penal Code which criminalize abortion. So if you want to understand the MTP Act, you must look at it in the context of how it evolved. It starts with the Indian Penal Code, which was promulgated by the Britishers in 1860, which criminalized not only the woman seeking the abortion, but also criminalized the doctor who provided the abortion. Because of this, abortion went underground. It was performed usually in unsafe ways by unsafe providers. And slowly over a period of time, the government realized it. And to stem the high morbidity and mortality with illegal abortions in 1964, the government set up a committee called the Shantilal Shah Committee. Shantilal Shah was not a doctor, he was a retired bureaucrat from Mumbai. The committee worked for 2 years until it finally presented its report in 1966, which finally resulted that the MTP bill was presented to the Rajya Sabha in 69, referred to a joint select review and finally passed as the MTP Act in 1971. If you'll see what is circled in red over there, that page, I got it when I'd gone to make a presentation in the Indian Parliament. I got it from the library of the Indian Parliament. That's an original page from the Shantilal Shah Committee report. And if you will see over there, circled in red, Foxy was represented even in that Shantilal Shah Committee. And the person who represented Foxy at that time was Dr. V.N. Shirodkar. And we all know Dr. V.N. Shirodkar for his cerclages, his tubal techniques, his Shirodkar sling. But given the fact that India sees something like 15 million abortions a year, I would have to say that Dr. Shirodkar probably touched more lives of women with this single representation in the MTP Act compared to anything that he wrote or invented in gynecology. So the MTP Act is the big act which actually provides an overview of safe abortion and then delegates some authority to central and state governments. The rules are framed by the central government but then get ratified by each house of parliament, and the regulations are framed by state governments and relate to issues involving opinions, reporting and maintaining secrecy. Now the regulations are required because in India, with its federal structure, health is a state subject. So the center can make a policy, but at the end of the day, the implementation has to be done by the state government. So all state governments need to have a voice in any national health policy that is devised from the center. And then finally, there are the SOPs, which actually talk about medically how we would do things. So if you look at the act, as I said, it's actually a very simple and elegant act. It just tells you three things: who can do the abortion, who can undergo the abortion, and where can you do the abortion. So the crux of the act is actually section 3, which talks about when pregnancies may be terminated. And in the old act, it was that pregnancies can be terminated up to 20 weeks of gestation. Between up to 12 weeks, you need the permission or the indication or the signature of one RMP. Between 12 and 20 weeks, you need signature of 2 RMPs. And then it assigns some indications. So remember, abortion in India is not a woman's right. Women seem to access abortion and we provide it to them almost on demand. But technically, every time you do an MTP, you have to give an indication. So as obstetricians and gynecologists, we are actually gatekeepers for providing safe abortion to our women, because if we say today that you don't have an indication for abortion, then legally that woman can't access an abortion. So it's not a right. It still needs an indication given by the RMP. However, what gives us flexibility is this explanation 2 within the indications, which says that when pregnancy occurs as a result of failure of any device or method used by a married woman, which we take as saying failure of contraception. If you look at the government records, you'll find that almost 96% of abortions are done for this indication. And see, this is why it's important to frame laws in a little flexible manner. This is what allows our women to access abortion practically on demand. I will be talking a little bit about how these are amended now. We know that pregnancies can be terminated in registered places, and these registered places are determined by a district level committee. And in fact, if you are going to do a surgical abortion, these are the requirements you need to follow. And again, these requirements are so basic that if you don't have them, you probably will not be able to do a surgical abortion. The government says that there is something known as an RMP, and in this context, an RMP is different from what we are used to thinking of as an RMP. RMPs in this context are obstetricians and gynecologists or MBBS doctors who have received a certain training to undergo or provide an abortion. And then there is the documentation and records, particularly this admission register. Now this is a bit of a problem if you ask me in the MTP Act. Ideally what you are supposed to do is that when the patient comes to you and gets, say for example, admitted for a surgical abortion, you are supposed to put her name in the register and then assign a code to her. And then in whichever documents follow, you are not supposed to refer to her by name, you are supposed to refer her to by the code. And that register is supposed to be a secret document which you are to keep under lock and key. But this is a big problem, because suppose now this patient has got insurance cover for that abortion. If you write the code on the discharge card, then obviously she is not going to get the reimbursement, or you are not going to get approval from insurance to do it. So then what to do? The question then comes is that if you write her name on the discharge card, are you breaking confidentiality? The answer to that is you are not, because the discharge card technically is handed over to the patient, and the confidentiality contract exists between you and the patient, and therefore by giving her a discharge card with her name on it, you are not breaking confidentiality. It's important to know this because there are penal provisions in the amendments for breaking confidentiality. Moreover, as I said, the MTP Act is protective for doctors, which means that there's a section 8 which says that if you have followed everything in the MTP Act, then it is deemed that you acted in good faith, and not only can you not you don't have to fight a case or anything, a case cannot even be filed against you. But for this, you have to follow everything that is there in the MTP Act. Finally, medical abortion, and this really was the game changer in abortion services in our country. And did you know that we are able to provide medical abortion, which constitutes 80% of 15 million abortions in this country, because of one line in the explanation in the rules in 2001. And that one line talks about the use of mifepristone and misoprostol. So I told you that there's the act, there are the rules, the regulations, and then there are the SOPs. And the SOPs seek to answer questions for clinical practice. And these SOPs are actually very important. And I had the good fortune of drafting the FOXY guidelines for MTP. I drafted them in 2005 when I was the chair of the MTP committee, and I'm very happy to say that at that time they were still so forward looking that they are applicable today also, even after the amendments have taken place. And we provide medical abortion with MIFI and MISO in the second trimester on the basis of these SOPs and guidelines from the government sector. There is of course this problem that laws sometimes are written in silos, and because they are written in silos, they don't take into account the other laws which impact the provision of abortion. So for example, the PCPNDT Act. There is always this conflation in the minds of those who implement both these acts, because often it's the same person implementing the MTP Act and the PCPNDT Act. And let me tell you that actually there is no correlation between the PCPNDT and the MTP Act. They are two completely disparate and separate acts with completely different purposes. And if someone thinks that they can actually reduce sex-selected abortion by cracking down on abortion, they are completely wrong. And then of course there is the problem of the POCSO Act. If you looked at the original MTP Act, you'll see that it was actually very, very friendly to adolescents. Previously, what the MTP Act was that if you are less than 18 years old, you just bring anybody with you. It doesn't have to be a relative, any adult person with you, and that person can sign the consent form and you can get an abortion. But then the POCSO Act came in, and when the POCSO Act came in, what it essentially said was that all sexual activity below the age of 18 is criminal. And because obviously a pregnancy, wanted or unwanted, results from sexual activity, if an adolescent girl less than 18 years of age comes to you seeking an abortion, you have to report her to the authorities. Most of the times the authorities, unless you have child services in your area, happen to be the police. What you have to do is on your letterhead simply say that Miss so-and-so, age about so-and-so, has come to see me and I find that she's so many weeks pregnant. You take that to the police station, take a received stamp on a copy of that and come back to your clinic. After that, it is not your responsibility about what happens in that POCSO case. Once you have informed the police, the girl and you both move from the POCSO Act back into the MTP Act, where all the other old sections of MTP Act apply, which you can then use to provide an abortion. So I have actually been quite lucky that I have been a part of 2 rounds of amendments in the MTP Act. And this was the last time the MTP Act got amended, which was 2001. We started working on the new amendments many years back. So if you see, that's a screenshot of my calendar, 6th October 2008, and the reason I'm showing you that is, see what happens on that day. MTP amendments meeting at the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, New Delhi. So that's how long. That was my first official government meeting for amendments to the MTP Act, and the amendments got passed in 21. So you can imagine how much time it has taken for this, and there has obviously been a whole lot of advocacy by a whole lot of stakeholders. There is nothing to say that we have been, the sole stakeholders responsible. A lot of people within Foxy, outside Foxy have worked, and I have made a contribution also. So these are some of the publications which I have authored. You can see these are publications in the mainstream media advocating for amendments to the MTP Act. That's Hindustan Times, that's the Hindu. I've even published in some law journals. I've been active on social media for it. In fact, I've been interviewed by at least 3 law journals on the amendments to the MTP Act. We've published in the International Journal of ONG, and I've made around 4 presentations to various sets of parliamentarians to make them understand what the MTP Act is and why the amendments are required. We even had the opportunity to go to the Prime Minister's office. You'll see Dr. C.N. Purandare sir, Dr. Jaideep Malhotra and me. I was the Secretary General and Jaideep was the President of Foxy and C.N. sir was the President of FIGO. And we had an opportunity to meet the person who was in charge of health at the Prime Minister's office and tell him that these were the things which were urgently needed in terms of amendments. We were therefore delighted when the amendments finally reached the Parliament, and I'm not sure you'll be able to hear this, but
extensive इसमें consultations किए गए हैं। भारत सरकार के स्वास्थ्य मंत्रालय के अलावा बहुत सारे मंत्रालय, सभी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स, सभी प्रकार के स्टेक होल्डर्स, सभी रिलेटेड देश के एनजीओज, देश की सबसे बड़ी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है गायनेकोलॉजिस्ट, जिसकी शायद few lakh members गायनेकोलॉजिस्ट हैं, फॉक्सी जिसको बोलते हैं।
So that was Dr. Harshvardhan, who was the health minister speaking in the parliament when they moved the amendments to the MTP Act. And as you heard, he mentioned Foxy as the most important stakeholder in this whole process of amending the MTP Act. I think this is perhaps the first time that Foxy was actually mentioned in Parliament as an important stakeholder, and we were very happy when the amendments finally came to fruition. So what do the amendments say? The amendments first talk about the formation of a medical board. They replace the word lunatic with mentally ill person, and they, for the first time ever, talk about the method of providing an abortion within the Act. You know, all these years since 1971, the methods of providing an abortion have not been mentioned in the Act at all. This is actually going to be a very far-reaching kind of an amendment. The big change which came was that now up to 20 weeks of gestation, you need only 1 signature. Previously you needed 2 between 12 and 20. Now you need only 1. And if the pregnancy is beyond 20 weeks, that is between 20 and 24 weeks, now you need 2 signatures, but for certain indications which I will talk to you. Within the Act itself, the limit of gestational age has been extended to 24 weeks for the indication of rape. And here another very important thing, in that famous clause of failure of contraception, the word married has been removed. Now you may think that this is a very small change, but it's actually a very significant societal change, because by removing the word married, the government accepts that single women also have sex, single women also have unplanned pregnancies, and single women also need an abortion. So who can undergo an abortion up to 24 weeks without going to court? Remember, these indications you don't have to go to court. Up to 24 weeks, you will see that there is a broad range of women who can undergo an abortion. Now remember, I told you about that 12-year-old girl and the long process that it took her. It used to take weeks and months to actually go to court. Up to 24 weeks, with no reinspection, no recertification, no inspection of premises, you are now allowed to provide abortion if you are registered up to 20 weeks of gestation. But the only indication for which you cannot provide the abortion is failure of contraception. For all other indications now, you are automatically qualified as a qualified obstetrician and gynecologist to provide abortions up to 24 weeks. Medical boards, as I said, were supposed to be set up, and there was elucidation of this in the rules. The problem was that because health is a state subject, the rules said that every state has to issue a gazette, and only after that gazette is issued can you have medical boards. Setting up the medical board is very simple, it just requires 3 people. The problem really was issuing the gazette. In fact, I got a call from Delhi after the amendments were passed by a couple who was working in IT, who at 28 weeks found that their fetus had a very complex fatal congenital cardiac anomaly. And they phoned me up saying that, we understand you're active in the abortion space, we want to have an abortion. I said, well, you're in Delhi. Should not be a problem. Go to a medical college and a board. Remember, the patient after 20 weeks, like they used to need to go to court, doesn't need to go to court anymore. Up to 24 weeks, you yourself can decide. After 24 weeks, for congenital anomalies, the patient does not need to go to court, they need to go to the medical board. So, to their surprise, they found that Delhi did not have a medical board at that time. So then I told them, all right, go to the High Court, and now don't go to the High Court and seek permission for an abortion. Go to the High Court and tell them that a medical board needs to be formed in Delhi. So I helped them to write the affidavit, etc. And the medical board was formed and they could get the abortion. And I cannot tell you what a major change this is. Previously, if you had a patient like this, she would have had to go to court, and no regular court would do it. It would have to be compulsorily a high court. Then the high court would set up a medical board. The medical board could take its time. There was no time limit. It sometimes took weeks together to get a report which would be given in a sealed envelope to the judge. And then the judge would say whether an abortion can be done or not. With these amendments, the patient doesn't need to go to court, they go straight to the medical board, and the medical board is duty bound to actually provide the opinion in 3 days. So what used to take weeks together now happens in 3 days, and within 5 days they are bound to make sure that she gets the safe abortion. So these are all the states in which the gazette has been notified. I am very happy that Bihar is on top of the list with a number of medical boards having been established, so you already have access to abortion almost through the gestational age. There is this section 5 which has evoked some concern because it talks of penal provisions, but as I said, if you have followed the act, then it will be deemed to be in good faith and you don't have to worry about it. There are some changes in training requirements, the way opinions are given, and there are 2 new forms. There's a form D which has to be filled when you are looking at abortions beyond 24 weeks, and there is that form which we have to fill for abortions between 20 and 24 weeks. In fact, after the amendments came out, the government of Maharashtra decided to do SOPs for late abortions. And again, I was fortunate that I was asked to draft these SOPs for the government, and I did that, and we sent them to the center, and we are looking for SOPs on late abortions from the center. In fact, the central government also asked me to write an op-ed on the amendments, and I was very happy when they released this op-ed as a press note to all the high commissions and embassies of India all over the world. So if you go to these high commission and embassy websites, you'll be able to read my op-ed. In fact, there has been some criticism to say that perhaps the amendments didn't go far enough, but I have just a couple of years back finished my stint as the chair for abortion for FIGO, which is the global organization. So I do have a global perspective, and I can tell you that as it stands now, India has perhaps one of the best laws on abortion in the entire world. If you look at what is supposed to be the most developed country in the world, the United States of America, because Roe versus Wade has been overturned in the Supreme Court and every state gets to decide, there are entire states in America where there's not even one abortion provider. In Texas, the largest state in the American Union, there's not even one abortion provider, not even one. Women from Texas now have to go to Mexico to get an abortion, and compare that with the access which our women have. Of course, there is always a tortuous path from policy to implementation. It's not always so easy, but we have to navigate this path, because when abortion is provided by safe providers in safe settings, in fact, it is one of the safest medical procedures. We need to end unsafe abortion because we want to look forwards with hope, not backwards with regret. After all, history, ladies and gentlemen, is her story too. Thank you very much.
Anybody wants to say? Hello, Jaideep.
I think Dr. Rangila
Yes,
Sinha.
Rangila madam.
What happens at present? How long the pregnancy?
Yes.
Means
So, ma'am,
what duration of pregnancy should be terminated legally?
right. So, up to 20 weeks, things remain as they were. You are allowed to terminate for everything, including failure of contraception. The old
20 or 24?
20 weeks. There are 3 steps now in gestational age limits. So, up to 20 weeks, all the old indications, including failure of contraception, apply. The amendments have made it so that you don't need 2 signatures between 12 and 20 weeks, you need only 1 signature. For 20 to 24 weeks, the indication of failure of contraception does not apply. For any other indication, you can do an abortion without going to the medical board or going to the court. After 24 weeks, for patients who have congenital anomalies, you don't need to go to court anymore, you just go to the medical board, and within 5 days you should be able to provide an abortion if the medical board agrees
Up
that
to what? 30 weeks?
no limit. It could be 36 weeks also. No limit at all.
Then it will be not abortion.
Correct, but I mean that's just, I mean according to the law, there is no gestational age limit for congenital anomalies if the medical board approves. And for all other indications after 24 weeks like rape, incest and so on and so forth, for that you still need to go to court.
So we as a, or our conscience will not allow to terminate pregnancy after 32 weeks. We don't want to terminate pregnancy.
Once, yeah. There are already around 14 medical boards in Bihar. And this is like data which is a year old. So you might have more medical boards already.
IPAS is looking after those
Yeah.
boards, they are coming and getting it done.
Yeah. So in fact, I'm on the board of IPAS. I'm a director.
IPAS is very
Yeah,
active in
yeah.
Muzaffarpur, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Very well.
Yes, yes.
Excuse me, sir.
हम लोग ऐसे भी 32 वीक्स पे करना भी नहीं चाहेंगे ना किसी.
नहीं, अब congenital
मैडम अभी ऐसा है कि it depends. Now suppose there's an anencephaly at 32 weeks. I'm just giving an example, right? Suppose there's an anencephaly, it's not been detected up to 32 weeks. Then it's a good idea to do the abortion. So what you do is you do a KCL injection, you stop the heartbeat and deliver her at 32 weeks, where the chances that she will have obstructed labor and a cesarean are much lower. So it depends from indication to indication. I mean, I have a belief, a very strong belief actually, that if a woman needs an abortion, she should be able to get it at any gestational age. It's up to us to provide it safely. Suppose now there is a baby with, let's say, Down syndrome. Now that becomes a much more difficult situation once you cross 24 weeks of gestation, and whether you'll get permission for that abortion or not from the medical board is also uncertain. But again, it depends. If the woman feels very strongly that she doesn't want the baby, she still has the right to go to court. So till how many weeks of gestation you can provide an abortion is unfortunately different for everybody. For me, it would be that she should get the abortion at any time. You said at 32 weeks you are not comfortable providing the abortion, which is also fine. But then you have to see the indication. Suppose it's a fatal anomaly. Then why not do it at 32 weeks when the chances that she'll have a vaginal birth are higher, otherwise she'll go to term, and with an anencephalic baby she'll have to undergo a cesarean section. So I think it depends. I don't think there's any one good answer for that. Yes, doctor.
Excuse me, sir. I have a question regarding the medical board, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, is there any inclusion criteria for pediatric surgeon in the medical board?
No. So there was a lot of discussion on this, doctor. I was very fortunate that I was a part of the committee which drafted these amendments. And some people were saying that the medical board should have a pediatric cardiologist, neurologist, surgeon, so on and so forth. And the problem really is that there aren't enough of them, right? So if we were to include all these other subspecialties in the board, then the number of boards by its very nature would be very few. And then that would defeat the purpose, because at the end the aim is that every district in this country will have a medical board so that women get better access to abortion. So as of now, there is no provision to compulsorily have a pediatric surgeon. However, there is an option to include a pediatric surgeon as and when it is needed.
Okay, right, sir.
Yeah. You can co-opt, but it's not mandatory. Mandatory is 3 people. Gynecologist, who's the lead of the medical board, the radiologist and the pediatrician.
Yes,
These
sir.
3 are mandatory.
So the aim of Indian Association of Pediatric Surgeon at the moment is to provide a pediatric surgeon to every district.
Yeah.
The problem with our sir, I am a pediatric surgeon.
Yes, I guess
Sir, the
that.
problem with our super specialty is that regarding prognosis, as far as a pediatrician is concerned, with all due respect to all the pediatricians, they are able to give some amount of prognosis or prognostic marker regarding physician's concern. So a pediatrician is able to give a prognosis regarding a pediatric cardiology or a nephrology or say suppose a pulmonology consultation. But for pediatric surgeon, it's a totally different specialty. I agree with what the general problem with you is, what you're saying is correct, but yes, there are a lot of surgical problems that over the last decade have actually become good prognosis because of the advancements.
Yes.
So we are lucky that our district has 3 pediatric surgeons now, so definitely we'll try and contribute better to these antenatal scans and with coordination with the mobs.
So the option to co-opt or ask for a pediatric surgery opinion exists.
Okay.
But we didn't make it mandatory.
Okay, sir. Because of the lack of the.
That's right.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Our President Jaideep Tank, for giving me so much information about
Thank you,
MTP Act amendment. Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
ma'am. Thank you.
Any question from the audience? Any question?
Sorry, madam. The Odon device. I thought I'm running late. That's why.
Public forum.
Yeah.
What project you are having?
No, the BMGF project that I presented to you, and वो शुरू में बताया ना मैडम project. I'll explain it to you, madam. No problem. नहीं है sound नहीं है. Do you want to see the Odon device? So this is about the Odon device which I had talked about. Remember that this device is not commercially available as of now. It will be commercially available in the second quarter of next year, when the project will be going on. So this device was actually made by a mechanic in South America. His name was Jorge Odon, and this is the way the device is supposed to be used. Sorry, yeah. Okay, there is an applicator for that device. There's a video later which I'll show you. There's the applicator. So you use the applicator to push the plastic bag over the head of the fetus. Then you inflate the cuff of the bag, okay, which fits around the jaw, so that the jaw is encapsulated not by a hard thing like a forceps or anything, but by that soft plastic which is filled with air. Okay, and then you remove the applicator. So now what is there in the vagina is only the plastic bag. And then you use it like, you're removing a cork from a wine bottle. You gently maneuver the plastic bag and then guide the baby's head out. So that's me in Paris. I told you I had undergone some training on how to do it. And this is actually the short video on it. It will come in a minute. So you'll see that you just apply it. That's the applicator device. That's the applicator. That is hard, but that goes away. So the applicator is used to slide the plastic bag over the baby's head. This is the blue thing, is the cuff. And this is then inflated. Can you see that? You just inflate the cuff. So now the baby's head is caught with that soft plastic with the air in it. Remove that, and then just like you are using a shopping bag, you remove the baby. Okay, it looks very easy. I'm sure it's not that easy. It does require a certain amount of skill, but there have been two trials conducted. One at the Bristol University in the UK, and another one at the Besançon University in France. And they say that uptake of this is very easy, particularly for obstetricians who are trained in instrumental delivery. This device represents a significantly easier way of delivering babies. Full dilatation. All the indications of a low and outlet forceps applied. Yeah. You can't apply it when the cervix is this thing. Yeah. But perhaps with time and experience, we'll be able to apply it at a little higher station, which we are not doing now. The problem will be, of course, the fact that this doesn't flex the fetal head, right? So if you have a obstetric forceps, for example, I exclusively use forceps. I don't use the vacuum at all, and I use this special forceps called the Hayes parallel forceps, which allows flexion. So maybe I can, show you a picture of what I use in our practice. Yeah. So this is the forceps that I use. Okay, in this forceps, that middle part, so it's a reverse forceps. Normally the blades are straight or they angle upwards. In this forceps, the blades are downwards. So because they are downwards and they are parallel, so there's no lock in this. All forceps are traditionally locked. This is a parallel forceps. Okay, because it's parallel and the blades are downward like this, it allows me to apply it much more easily. And then this shank which is here is flexible. So what I do is I apply the forceps. These two handles allow me to see whether there is where the occiput is. Because this is at the top, so if this is on one side, then I know that the occiput is on one side. Then I know how much to rotate. And because there is a spud and groove mechanism here, and there is no locking, it allows me to account for asyncretism. So one blade could be a little more inside and one blade could be a little more outside. So that's why I like this forceps. I've been using it since, this forceps, I first used it when I was a resident in Wadia Hospital many years back. And this is the way, we apply this forceps. So you can see that's me applying the forceps. You can see the forceps is twisted like that, right? And because I can see that this spud is like this, I know that I have to make a rotation. Okay, and also because the shank is like this is actually just a caput. It's actually, the station is a little high, but because it's long, because there's a reverse thing and there's parallelism, I'm not compressing the fetal head too much. Because there's no compression, you will see that the movement that I use to deliver is quite different. You normally pull like this with the forceps. Here I'm pulling down. And because I'm pulling it down, it allows the head to come out more gently, in a more physiological way. So I'm using that, I'm pulling it down. You can see now restitution will take place of the fetal head. So this is the instrument that I'm using currently. But the Odon device hopefully will, replace this. Sorry. Yeah. What?
Why not Ventus? And
Why not Ventus? Oh, because Papa never used Ventus. So, no other reason, madam. Trained in forceps. I used to use Ventus when I was a resident, but then after I came into practice, I worked with Dad for a long time, and he almost exclusively used the forceps, and I never really found any reason to change, madam. It's not to say the Ventus is bad or anything. It's just I prefer this. Yeah, yeah. And that reverse curve makes a lot of difference, madam. So at cesarean, I use the normal forceps.
No, I have not used. I am fan of Ventus. But I must say, like Chamberlain, I must say about Jaideep, he is very innovative, you have seen. And you know, he has really worked hard in Foxy. And he is very soft spoken, but he does work very quietly, and it is beneficial to all obstetricians, gynecologists, and all the patients. I must only say today, I admit that, like Chamberlain, he can never kept secret that what forceps he is using. So with your experience, I think everybody will start using this forceps
Thank you, ma'am.
before Odon device come. So congratulations, Dr. Jaidi, for the excellent oration.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Through you, we went through the journey of MTP Act, and we could see this Odon device and Hayes forceps. Now I request Dr. Abha Sinha Madam, Dr. Manju Sinha Madam, Dr. Lata Sinha Madam, please come. Dr. Shobha Rani Misra Madam. Dr. Suniti Sinha Madam.
Vote of thanks. Hello. Smita. Smita. Announcement. Vote of thanks are present.
Now, our dear Secretary, Dr. Sadhna Sinha Madam, will give vote of thanks.
Good evening, respected dignitaries and my senior junior colleagues. As we come to the close of this enlightening conference here at Muzaffarpur Foxy ICOG MOXCON, it is my privilege and honor as the Secretary of MOX to extend our heartfelt thanks to all who have contributed to its success. First and foremost, I would like to express our deepest gratitude to our distinguished guests and dignitaries whose presence has greatly enriched this conference. We are profoundly grateful to our President Dr. Jaideep Tang sir for coming to Muzaffarpur all the way from Mumbai and giving such an insightful talk. Our sincere thanks also goes to Dr. Vandana Chadda Madam and Dr. Prachi Singh for their invaluable workshop that provided practical knowledge and skill to our participants. A special thanks to Dr. P.K. Mitra Sir, Dr. Abha Rani Madam for their expert panel discussion which fostered engaging conversations and deepened our understanding of the latest advancement. We are also thankful to Dr. Madhuri Patel Madam, whose session on HPV vaccination was particularly illuminating and beneficial. Additionally, we are very grateful to Dr. J.B. Sharma Sir, Dr. Alka Pandey Madam, Dr. Pallavi Rai Madam for their exceptional presentation. We would like to take a moment to honor and thank Professor Dr. Rangila Sinha Madam, the soul of our society, for the unwavering support and dedication over the years. This conference would not have been possible without the tireless effort and dedication of the organizing committee and volunteers, President Dr. Neelam Sinha and Treasurer Dr. Ashurani, Dr. Smita Singh, Dr. Smita Karan, Dr. Jyoti, Dr. Anubha, Dr. Shashi Chaudhary. Your hard work behind the scenes ensured that everything ran smoothly. I thank Dr. Shakuntala Singh Madam for joining us from Motihari. To all the speakers, presenters, thank you for sharing your expertise and contributing to the rich tapestry of knowledge that we have woven over these past few days. We also extend our gratitude to our sponsors for their generous support, which played a crucial role in the success of this event. Finally, to all the participants, thank you for your active engagement and enthusiasm. Your participation and eagerness to learn are what drive the success of such gathering. As we launch this conference, let us carry forward the knowledge, ideas and inspiration we have gained here together. We can continue to work for the betterment of women's health. Thank you all once again and safe travel home. Thank you so much. Now we start the public forum. So please, those who are in public forum, please come. और भी लोग आए हैं पब्लिक फोरम में, प्लीज कम टू द डायस.
फॉक्सी के प्रेसिडेंट डॉक्टर जयदीप टंक भी आए हैं. खुशी की बात है कि फॉक्सी के जिसका कि 44,000 मेंबर है, उसके जो प्रेसिडेंट है वो यहाँ आए हुए हैं, तो आप लोग को वो भी कुछ संबोधित करेंगे आपको. और डॉक्टर माधुरी पटेल सेक्रेटरी जनरल है फॉक्सी के. मैंने फॉक्सी समझी ना कि 44,000 मेंबर है इसका, इतना बड़ा संस्था है. तो उसके जो प्रेसिडेंट हैं और जो उनके सेक्रेटरी हैं, वो लोग इस साल, मैंने वैसे तो हम लोग हमेशा ही चाहते रहते हैं कि कुछ हम लोग कम्युनिटी के लिए करें, लोगों को समझाने का काम। हम लोग तो सब जगह नहीं ना पहुंच सकते हैं, लेकिन बहुत लोग हैं जो कुछ जा सकता है दूर तक, जैसे आशा है ना, तो आशा हर एक जगह से आशा को अगर आप लोग कुछ इन्फ्लुएंस कीजिए। गुप्ता जी सुनिए, हम क्या कह रहे हैं कि आपके लेवल से क्या हो सकता है। आप तो सुनिए ना, सीनियर सिटीजन है ना, और आप किस में हैं? नहीं, इनके ये भी सीनियर सिटीजन में हैं। हाँ डॉक्टर जयदीप, तो ये लोग सीनियर सिटीजन के हैं। हटो ना, ये एक काम करने ना दो। सीनियर सिटीजन के ओर से ही दोनों आदमी आए हैं, और आप अपना परिचय दीजिए, इनका परिचय दीजिए ना जोर से ना, वो माइक यूज कीजिए।
Hello, sir, Dr. Sir. Myself, B.L. Lahori. I belong to Jammu and Kashmir, and fortunately, I am in Muzaffarpur for the last 45 years. I am a chemical engineer. I retired as a general manager in Indian Drugs and Pharmaceuticals Limited. So I am here, and I am very much happy today that we have got a very thorough gentleman in the shape of Dr. Jaideep, who has deliberated very nicely the cause of pit side and all those things. We are very much thankful you, and we warmly welcome you once again for the Citizens Forum that you have been in Muzaffarpur. Though we are not that much, when we have very good gynecologist over here. Dr. Rangila Sinha, she has been a Rotary president also, and she involves herself in every aspect of the society to get the things done in the right shape, because this is the prestige of the Muzaffarpur, and she is the best gynecologist in Muzaffarpur that I realize. Just I want to quote just 2 minutes, I will take time. My wife, she was not feeling well, and she was advised here that the uterus has to be removed. But fortunately I went, because I have very good faith in her, because we are all Rotarians also, and she told me that, you see, there are a lot of gynecologists in Muzaffarpur, and I know her status, she is an international fame doctor. So she advised me that why don't you take it to some other place. It is better, she advised me that you take it outside Muzaffarpur. So I took her to Chandigarh, PGI Chandigarh. There they told there is no problem for uterus except for the diabetes. So she was treated for the diabetes. Sometimes it so happens when there is a lot of good gynecologists over here, and they should be having a caution. If it is not required, then the doctors do for the sake of the money. If it is the criteria, then I am sorry to say that this is not a goodwill gesture of the part of the gynecologist or whosoever is the medical practitioner. For the sake of the money, putting the human life on stake, I don't think that it is appreciable. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much to Madam for giving me an opportunity. And one more instance. Once Rangila Sinha was the president of Rotary Club. We were also Rotarians that time, and there was a pulse polio rally. So she was to host the flag hoisting on that. She was to give the children the torch bearer of that flag. She asked her the name. She told, Madam, my name is also Rangila Sinha. Well, how come she was very much surprised? She taking me for some this thing. Then she told, Madam, I was born in your nursing home. That is, my mother told me that you have to be named by that. Thank you so much.
हाँ बैठिए डॉक्टर, आइए ना, स्टेज पर आइए ना आप लोग। नहीं तो बात कैसे कीजिएगा, यही नजदीक से ना, एक कुर्सी रखो ना 2-3 ठो और। सब लोग अपना अपना परिचय दीजिए। डॉक्टर माधुरी।
हाँ मुखातिब हुई।
संयोग है।
Young man of 53 H. Gupta.
Just by chance that.
Rotary in last 40 years. Dr. J.P. Singh was the district governor Then I was the district secretary. At that time, there was the only district secretary in a district.
Dr. Mitra,
Now there are so many district secretary, etc. I am also member of Senior Citizen Council here, and there are so many. With other organizations, I always on wheel. That you understand? Always on wheel. No, do not. Always on wheel. मैं चलता रहता हूँ. हाँ, considering my age, I am all right. और मैं लगा रहता हूँ, इंगेजमेंट रहता है, इसलिए मैं ठीक हूँ. और लास्ट टाइम में आपके फॉक्सी के जो आए थे प्रेसिडेंट, उनकी हमको मिले, और आप लोगों के द्वारा वो हमको ये फॉक्सी का जो है से ये क्या कहते हैं बदली भी दिया गया था, मैं रखते हुए. हाँ जी जी हाँ जी.
मैं रानू गुप्ता, वोमेन इन पावर से, मुजफ्फरपुर से प्रेसिडेंट.
जीविका समूह से भी उनकी उसको प्रोग्राम डायरेक्टर को बुलाए थे, बट संडे के कारण
वही मैं सोच रही थी कि सब इंग्लिश में बोल रहे हैं, हमारी इंग्लिश उतनी अच्छी है नहीं.
नहीं हिंदी में ही बोलिए, सबको हिंदी में ही बोलने को बोला गया.
गुड इवनिंग ऑल एवरीवन, रिस्पेक्टेड मेंबर्स. मैं बबली कुमारी, संयोजक वोमेन एम्पावरमेंट से, और आज मुझे एचएल सर ने यहाँ बोला कि पब्लिक फोरम के लिए आना है. मुझे ज़्यादा कुछ समझ में आए नहीं, बट यहाँ आके लग रहा है कि बहुत कुछ सीख रही हूँ, और कुछ क्वेश्चन मेरे मन में भी है जो मैं अभी पूछूंगी सर से. और बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है आप सबसे यहाँ मिलके, और थैंक यू फॉर इन्वाइटिंग मी.
आप भी बोलिए कुछ, आपका आप अपना परिचय दीजिए ना.
हाँ, ये रानू गुप्ता है, सोशल वर्कर फॉर वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट की प्रेसिडेंट.
हाँ, तो सोशल वर्कर से ही तो हम लोग को काम है ना, ताकि आप लोग कुछ ज़्यादा दूर तक जा सकते हैं, हम लोग उतना दूर तक नहीं जा सकते हैं.
एक्चुअली हमारे संस्था की 1 साल हो गई है, और अभी 2 दिन पहले हम लोगों ने फर्स्ट एनिवर्सरी सेलिब्रेट की, और काफ़ी 1 साल में काफ़ी लोगों की रिस्पेक्ट और काफ़ी मुझे सबसे सपोर्ट हेल्प की वजह से यहाँ तक पहुँचे हैं, और काफ़ी लोगों की सराहनाएं भी बहुत मिली है.
जानती हैं कि लड़की लोग को अगर सुई दे दिया जाए, वैक्सीन दे दिया जाए, तो उसके बाद में यूट्रस का कैंसर नहीं होगा, आप जानती हैं?
नहीं, ये मुझे नहीं पता, बट इससे कैसे,
मालूम नहीं है लोगों को.
हाँ, बट इससे कैसे हम बच सकते हैं, क्या इसका क्या है, तो इसी सब के लिए यहाँ अगर हमें पता हो तो शायद अगर मैं कहीं अवेयर करूँ ऐसे स्लम एरिया में जाके लड़कियों के बीच, तो मैं बता सकूँ.
हाँ, वही ना.
इसलिए
इसीलिए आप लोग को बुलाए हैं कि जहाँ तक हम लोग नहीं पहुँच सकते हैं डॉक्टर, उसके आगे आप लोग पहुँच सकती हैं, तो आपको हम लोग बताएंगे क्या करना है. और आप लोग चूँकि सोशल वर्कर हैं, अपना तो इंटरेस्ट बहुत कम ही रहता है लोगों को सोशल वर्कर कहने का मतलब यही है ना कि जो सेल्फलेस सर्विस करे, कहा तो ही जाता है कि सेल्फलेस सर्विस करे, वही सोशल वर्कर है. तो अभी आप लोग भी हम यही समझ रहे हैं कि आप लोग तो ज़्यादा अपना काम से जो समय बचता होगा उसको सोसाइटी को देना चाहती हैं, इसीलिए ना आप लोग काम कर. तो हम लोग देते हैं कि आप लोग को पेपर देते हैं, ये निकालो ना उसमें साथ ना, अटैची में से, अटैची में लिखा हुआ है, सो ये तो निकालो ना. क्या है
मैडम, हम लोग यहाँ सर्वाइकल कैंसर वैक्सीन के अवेयरनेस के लिए भी अप्लाई है.
नहीं, अरे अटैची में है, छोटा वाला अटैची खोलो ना. जैसे ब्रेस्ट का कैंसर होता है ना, स्तन का कैंसर, तो उसको एकदम से ख़त्म नहीं किया जा सकता है, क्योंकि जब छोटा सा भी हो जाता है तब ना उसको पैल्पेट किया जाता है.
हाँ, वो पता नहीं चलता है, गांठ जैसे कुछ फील होता है. मेरे पास ऐसे कितने लोगों ने बोला, मैं उनको सीधे डॉक्टर से कनेक्ट कराई कि आप उनसे पहले मिलिए, क्योंकि ज़्यादा वो बताएंगे. तो बट ये उसका स्टार्टिंग उसका उससे रिलेटेड शायद हो सकता है, मे बी सही हो गलत हो, लेकिन सही परामर्श जो है वो आप दे सकती हैं, हमें बस आप तक पहुँचाना है. और जहाँ तक हमें अगर थोड़ा आपसे नॉलेज मिल जाए तो वहाँ पे मैं उनको
इसीलिए गाइड कर सकती हूँ आप लोग को कि हमसे नॉलेज लेके लोगों को बताइए, जिससे तक हम नहीं पहुँच सकते हैं. और दूसरी बात है कि हम लोग जो बात कर रहे हैं जिसका, वो यूट्रस की माउथ होता है ना, यूट्रस होता है ना, उसका यूट्रस का माउथ होता है और उसका बॉडी होता है. तो यहाँ से पानी ले करके वो जांच होता है पैप स्मीयर। तो पहले तो हम लोग वही करते थे कि उसमें जो चेंज आता है, जो खराबी होने वाला रहता है, उसका 4-5 साल पहले ही से आभास हो जाता है। तो उस पेशेंट को हम लोग, उस औरत को हम लोग फॉलो करके देखते रहते हैं कि उसको कैंसर होने का डर है। तो अगर कैंसर होने का डर है तो जो ट्रीटमेंट होता है सो उसी समय करते हैं और जल्दी जल्दी बुलाते भी हैं इसको। तो इसको पैप स्मीयर कहते हैं। तो पैप स्मीयर तो हमेशा हम बांट ही रहे थे। पैप स्मीयर से भी और ज़्यादा अच्छा चीज़ निकल गया है, उसको कहते हैं वैक्सीन। आप तो जानती है ना कि वैक्सीन लगवा देने से उसमें इम्यूनिटी हो जाता है बॉडी में, तो फिर वो बीमारी नहीं हो सकता है। तो उसी तरह का कैंसर वैक्सीन जो है उसको निकला है। ये तो बहुत अच्छी बात है ना। नहीं ना जानती थी कि कैंसर का परमानेंट क्योर होता है। तो कैंसर हो जाने के बाद तो क्योर हो ही नहीं सकता है, लेकिन उसको होने से पहले रोकथाम किया जा सकता है। तो सब तरह का कैंसर का नहीं किया जा सकता है, लेकिन बच्चेदानी के मुंह पर कैंसर जो है, और मेल लोगों को, लड़का सबको जो एनएस का कैंसर होता है, वो सबको बचपन में 9 से 15 साल के उम्र में 2 सुई, और फिर 15 साल से 24 साल के बीच में 3 सुई अगर लग जाए तो उन लोगों को कैंसर नहीं होगा, उस चीज़ का कैंसर नहीं होगा। बच्चेदानी का कैंसर नहीं होगा। ये तो बात नई बात सुनी ना, तो इसी को आपको हम लोग चाहते हैं कि लोगों तक पहुँचाइए। हाँ, ये हम लिखे हैं। ये क्या है देखो तो,
कैंसर वाला जो बनवाया था ना।
लीजिए, और कागज देंगे इधर इन लोगों को दो।
मैडम आप भी
रंगीला मैडम ने जो आपको बताया वो एकदम सही है, और मैंने वही बारे में आज लेक्चर दिया, टॉक दिया हमारे गायनेकोलॉजिस्ट और ऑब्स्टेट्रिशियन को। तो ये जो थैली का मुंह का कैंसर हो ना, वो हमारे देश में ज़्यादा है। क्यों ज़्यादा है कि सबके पास हम पहुंच नहीं पाते हैं, और हम अपने लेडीज़ को, महिलाओं को समझा नहीं पा रहे हैं। समझा क्यों नहीं पा रहे? क्योंकि उनके तक वो बातें जाती ही नहीं हैं कि तुम्हें कैंसर हो सकता है, ये तकलीफ़ हो सकता है, वो तकलीफ़ हो सकता है। कभी कभी महिला लोग इतने बेचैन हो जाते हैं कि कोई भी बात कर लेंगे, समझो कि अभी सफ़ेद पानी जाना डरा रहे, तो सीधे बोलते हैं हमारा थैली निकाल दो। तो वैसे भी उनको डराना नहीं है, वैसे भी उनको डराना नहीं है। तो वो जो गर्भाशय की मुंह का जो कैंसर है अपने देश में ज़्यादा है, क्योंकि हम उसको स्क्रीनिंग नहीं कर पाते। जैसे पेप स्मीयर साल में 1 बार कराना चाहिए, उसमें से हमें आभास होता है कि एक कैंसर में हो सकता है, तो कैंसर होने के पहले ही उसका हम इलाज कर सकते हैं। अभी जो वैक्सीन निकला है उसको हम HPV वैक्सीन बोलते हैं, क्योंकि ये जो कैंसर, थैली का मुंह का कैंसर है, ज़्यादा करके HPV वायरस, ह्यूमन पेपिलोमा वायरस के हिसाब से होता है। उसके लिए अभी एक वैक्सीन निकला है जो हमारी लड़कियां है, बेटियां है, वो 9 से 14 के साल में उनको लगाना है। क्यों कि बिफोर उनका शादी होवे, पहले के ज़माने में बहुत जल्दी शादी होती थी, लेकिन देहात में भी जल्दी शादी अभी भी हो जाती है। तो उसके जैसे पहले उनका जो सेक्सुअल रिलेशन होता है उसके पहले लगता है, तो ये ज़्यादा असरकारक होता है। तो इसके लिए 9 से 14 के साल की बच्ची लोग को आपको घर घर में जाके सबको समझाना है कि ये वैक्सीन लगाना ज़रूरी है। उसको भी लगाते हैं।
ये वैक्सीन फ्री है या
15 के साल, 14 साल के बाद भी हम लगाते हैं।
ये वैक्सीन फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट है या इसके कुछ अमाउंट वगैरह है?
क्या
ये वैक्सीन जो जैसे उन बच्चियों को लगाना है तो इसके कुछ चार्जेज है या फिर?
ना, वो महंगा आता है। अभी प्राइवेट सेक्टर में भी हुआ है, लेकिन जब अभी हमारी सरकार ने भी बोला है कि हम वो अपने जैसे सब बच्चे लोग को सुई लगती है वैसे ही सुई लगेंगी, तो हमको सरकार तरफ से मिलेगा। लेकिन सरकार तरफ से कब मिलेगा वो अभी उन्होंने बजट बोला है 3 महीने के पहले, लेकिन कब मिलेगा वो मालूम नहीं। तब तक के लिए आपको, आप जैसे NGO को वो ख़रीदना है और वो बच्चे को लगाना है, क्योंकि वो महंगा है। तो आप लोग ही फंड जमा करके उनको मदद करना है। और 15 साल के बाद भी वैक्सीन लग सकता है, एक बार उनका सेक्सुअल रिलेशन आता है तो वो वैक्सीन लगता है, लेकिन समझाना पड़ता है कि ये वैक्सीन लगा है आपको, फिर भी आपको ये पेप्समियर, जैसे हम छाती का रिपोर्ट निकालने को बोलते हैं वैसे ही ये नीचे से पानी का रिपोर्ट निकालना पड़ता है, उसको पेप्समियर बोलते हैं। और कुछ भी ऐसे जो पैरामेडिक्स है जहाँ पे डॉक्टर नहीं पहुँच सकते, वहाँ पे नर्सिस है, आशा वर्कर है। जो आशा वर्कर तो कम्युनिकेट करते हैं, लेकिन जो अपने नर्सिस वगैरह है वो जाके उनको दिखता है कि बाबा ये बराबर नहीं है तो हमें रेफ़र कर सकती है। लेकिन ये सब करना ज़रूरी है तो हम कैंसर की नाबूदी कर सकेंगे।
बिना वो थैला निकाले ट्रीटमेंट संभव है अगर ये फाइंड आउट
वो
होता है?
कैंसर तक नहीं पहुंचाना चाहते, कैंसर शुरू से ही उसका इलाज हो गया तो हम थैला निकालने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। लेकिन अब कैंसर के स्टेज में आ गया, वो भी कैंसर पसरेला नहीं होता है तो हम निकाल सकते हैं, लेकिन वो सब जगह फैल गया होगा तो हम थैला निकाल के उसको कुछ फ़ायदा नहीं होता है। तो ये सब चीज़ आपको जाके समझाना है। हमारे जो यहाँ पे डॉक्टर्स हैं उनकी सलाह ले लो।
मेंस के समय जो पीरियड में दर्द होता है, क्या खतरनाक?
क्या
मेंस में दर्द होती है
पीरियड में? वो बहुत ऐसे सिम्टम्स रहते हैं, लेकिन
कुमारी लड़कियों
नहीं उसको कुछ नहीं होगा।
दर्द होता है तो कोई नुकसान तो
नहीं, दर्द होता है महीने में, आप वैक्सीन की बात नहीं कर रहे हो, आप दर्द होता है तो उसकी बहुत वजह रहती है। एक तो नॉर्मल दर्द हो सकता है, लेकिन बहुत दर्द होता है तो हमें आपको डॉक्टर के पास, गायनेकोलॉजिस्ट को भेजना है। कभी कभी कुछ बीमारी आ जाती है कि जैसे एंडोमेट्रोसिस बोलते हैं, जैसे थैली में से खून निकलता है वैसे वो खून अंदर पेट में भी जमा हो सकता है, तो वो सब देखना पड़ता है। कभी कभी टीबी की बीमारी हो जाती है तो वो सब देखते हैं। तो पेशेंट को बहुत दर्द होता है, लड़की लोग को, तो सीधा आपको डॉक्टर को बताना है। हाँ वही हाँ ठीक है।
मैम ये क्वेश्चन मेरा है कि जब प्रेग्नेंट हुई कोई, ठीक है, और वो फर्स्ट ही चेकअप कराई और उनको रिपोर्ट में आ गया कि वो रूबेला IgM पॉजिटिव है, तो उसके बाद वो बच्चे को रखना है या फिर क्योंकि उसके बाद तो शायद बच्चे कंजाइमेंटल ही आएंगे, तो ये 100% है कि बच्चा कंजाइमेंटल ही आएंगे या नॉर्मल भी हो सकता है?
हम आपको बता नहीं सकते कि IgM पॉजिटिव है, यानी उनको रूबेला अभी हुआ है तो चांसेस है कि बच्चा एबनॉर्मल आ सकता है। तो हम एडवाइस करते हैं उनको MTP करने के लिए। बच्चे रूबेला IgG पॉजिटिव है तो करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है।
तो बच्चे ना भी अगर वो करे तो 9 मंथ बाद जब बच्चे आएंगे तो बेबी का गारंटेड है?
नहीं, बेबी का गारंटेड नहीं है। IgG पॉजिटिव आएगा तो नहीं गारंटेड है, बट IgM के लिए गारंटेड नहीं है।
एक्चुअली मैम एक केस मेरे पास आई थी इस तरह का और मैं भी थोड़ी शॉक्ड थी। तो उस समय क्या था कि डॉक्टर विजय दी जिंदा थी, तो मैंने उनसे कंसल्ट किया तो वो बोली कि बबली ये बच्चा कंजाइमेंटल आएगा, इसको रखना बहुत डिफिकल्ट, इसको तुम अभी के अभी वो करवा दो। पेशेंट इतनी घबराई थी कि मुझे समझ में नहीं आया, और उसके हस्बैंड, मतलब ऐसा हो गया कि हस्बैंड वाइफ में डाइवोर्स तक मैटर आ गया कि अगर बच्चा को रखोगे फिर मुझे तुम्हारे साथ नहीं रहना, फर्स्ट बेबी। फिर उसी समय मतलब पटना से एक मेरी मेरे बहुत क्लोज हैं, तो मैंने उनसे बात की तो उन्होंने कहा कि एक बार तुम पटना आओ। मैं उनको लेके गई, डॉक्टर रश्मि प्रसाद, उनसे दिखाई। उनका एक ही चीज़ कहना था कि बच्चा अगर आना रहे तो ये पॉजिटिव ना भी होगा तो भी गलत आएगा, और अगर नहीं आना रहे तो बस। लेकिन उन्होंने ट्रीटमेंट किया और आज उनकी बेबी बहुत सही आई, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। लेकिन सेकेंड बेबी वो कंसीव नहीं कर पा रही है, तो इसके लिए क्या मतलब? लेकिन फर्स्ट बेबी हम लोग भी ये
हमारे प्रेसिडेंट है और स्पेशलिस्ट है यहाँ पे, जिसको बच्चा नहीं होता है।
हाँ,
तो उनसे बात कर लो।
इस पे सर एक चीज़ कि सेकेंड बेबी वो कंसीव नहीं कर पा रही। फर्स्ट बेबी का था कि बच्चे हट जाए, लेकिन बच्चे नहीं हटाई और बेबी, बट सेकेंड वो नहीं कंसीव कर।
रिलेटेड नहीं है, रीजंस रिलेटेड नहीं है शायद। अच्छा। और कोई रीज़न हो सकता है।
एक मिनट, मैंने एक सवाल लाई। ये सर हम लोग का पूरे 1 साल की जर्नी है। ओके, 1 मिनट।
सर हम लोग बिहारी हैं, स्वागत इसी से करेंगे क्योंकि बिहारी अगर गमछे ना होगा तो उनकी पहचान नहीं है। तो हम बिहारियों की पहचान है गमछा, तो गमछे से स्वागत। और ये रंगीला मेहंदी है। सबसे अभी सीनियर है। अच्छा एक मिनट, अच्छा एक मिनट मैं एक्स्ट्रा लेके रनिंग में
हाँ नो अनन्या